Hellenism, derived from the Greek word Hellenismos. This refers to the cultural, intellectual, and religious practices that originated in ancient Greece and spread throughout the Mediterranean world, especially after the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE. Originally, the term Hellenism was used to describe the Greek way of life, encompassing language, art, literature, philosophy, and religion. As Greek culture expanded beyond the borders of Greece, it began to interact with and influence various other cultures, resulting in a distinctive blend of Greek and local elements. In a broader sense, Hellenism represents the fusion of Greek culture with the traditions of the Near East, Egypt, Persia, and other regions. This cultural syncretism led to the development of a unique and cosmopolitan civilization during the Hellenistic period, which lasted from the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE to the rise of the Roman Empire in the 1st century BCE. Hellenism is characterized by the spread of the Greek language as the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean, the establishment of Greek-style cities and institutions, and the widespread adoption of Greek art, philosophy, and religious practices. The term Hellenism also carries a religious connotation, referring to the continuation and adaptation of Greek religious practices, including the worship of the Olympian gods, mystery religions, and the integration of foreign deities into the Greek pantheon. In this context, Hellenism represents both the preservation of traditional Greek religion and its transformation through contact with other cultures. Overall, Hellenism signifies a dynamic and transformative period in history where Greek culture served as a unifying force across diverse regions, shaping the social, political, and religious landscapes of the ancient world. Its influence continued well beyond antiquity, leaving a lasting legacy on Western civilization and contributing to the development of early Christian thought and other religious traditions. Today, we are going to have an extensive look at Hellenism from all of the respective angles. To understand the religion of Hellenism, we also need to understand the Greek culture and its rich history. I'm Lee W. Johnson. Don't forget to subscribe or get more on Patreon. The origins of Hellenism can be traced back to the early development of Greek civilization, which began to take shape during the Archaic period, which was circa 8th to the 6th centuries BCE. During this time, the Greeks established city-states or polis, which became the primary political and social units of Greek society. Each polis was an independent entity with its own government, laws, and customs, yet they shared a common language, religious practices, and cultural values that formed the foundation of what we now recognize as Hellenic culture. The concept of Hellenism was rooted in this shared cultural identity, which was primarily defined by the Greek language and the worship of Olympian gods. The Greeks viewed themselves as distinct from non-Greek peoples, whom they referred to as barbarians, because of their different languages and customs. The sense of shared identity was reinforced through pan-Hellenic institutions such as the Olympic Games and religious festivals, which brought together Greeks from different polis in a celebration of their common heritage. The Greek polis was also the birthplace of key cultural and intellectual developments that would later define Hellenism. The rise of philosophy with figures like Thales, Pythagoras, and Heraclitus marked the beginning of a tradition of rational inquiry that would profoundly influence later Hellenistic thought. In addition, the emergence of epic poetry, particularly through the works of Homer, and the development of Greek drama established literary forms that would become central to Greek culture. During the Classic period, circa 5th to 4th century BCE, the influence of Greek culture began to expand beyond the borders of Greece itself. The Persian War, which pitted the Greek city-states against the vast Persian Empire, fostered a sense of unity among the Greeks and solidified their cultural identity. Following the defeat of Persia, Athens emerged as a leading power and the center of Greek culture, particularly during its golden age under the leadership of Pericles. This period saw the flourishing of arts, philosophy, and democracy, all of which became hallmarks of Hellenism. However, the true expansion of Hellenism began with the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE. Alexander, educated by philosopher Aristotle and inspired by Greek ideals, sought to spread Greek culture across the vast territories he conquered, from Greece to Egypt to Persia and India. His campaigns not only resulted in the establishment of Greek-style cities and institutions throughout the known world, but also initiated a period of cultural fusion. As Greek settlers and local populations interacted, Greek culture blended with the customs, religions, and traditions of the conquered peoples, giving rise to the Hellenistic civilization. This period of cultural exchange marked the transition from the classical Greek world to the Hellenistic era, where Greek culture was no longer confined to the Greek mainland, but became a cosmopolitan phenomenon that influenced a diverse range of societies. The origins of Hellenism, therefore, lie in the early development of Greek civilization and its expansion through both peaceful and military means, setting the stage for the widespread diffusion of Greek culture that would characterize the Hellenistic period. The Hellenistic period, spanning from the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE to the rise of the Roman Empire in 31 BCE, represents a transformative era in ancient history where Greek culture, language, and ideas spread far beyond the borders of Greece, blending with diverse traditions of the Near East, Egypt, Persia, and other regions. This period is marked by the emergence of new kingdoms, the flourishing of cultural and intellectual life, and the development of a unique and cosmopolitan civilization that would leave a lasting legacy on the ancient world. The Hellenistic period was initiated by the conquest of Alexander the Great, who, within a decade, created one of the largest empires in history. After ascending to the Macedonian throne in 336 BCE, Alexander embarked on an ambitious campaign to conquer the Persian Empire, which culminated in a series of decisive victories that brought vast territories under Greek control, including Asia Minor, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and parts of India. Alexander's vision was not merely to conquer, but to unite these diverse regions under a common cultural and political framework. He founded numerous cities, many of which were named Alexandria, and established Greek as the lingua franca of his empire. These cities became centers of Greek culture and learning, where Greek settlers mingled with local populations, leading to a vibrant exchange of ideas and customs. Alexander's untimely death in 323 BCE left his empire without a clear successor, resulting in its division among its generals, who became known as the Diadochi. The division of Alexander's empire led to the formation of several powerful Hellenistic kingdoms, each ruled by one of his former generals. So let's have a look at some of the more prominent of these kingdoms. We've got the Ptolemaic Egypt, established by Ptolemy Soter, or Soter. This kingdom became a major centre of Hellenistic culture, with Alexandria as its capital. The city became famous for its great library and the lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Ptolemaic rulers adopted many aspects of Egyptian culture while maintaining their Greek heritage, leading to a unique blend of traditions. Then we have the Seleucid Empire, founded by Seleucus I Nicator. This vast empire covered many of the former Persian territories, including Syria, Mesopotamia, and parts of India. The Seleucids encouraged the spread of Greek culture through the establishment of cities and promotion of Greek education, philosophy, and religion. We also have Antigonid Macedonia, ruled by the Antigonid dynasty. Macedonia remained a powerful kingdom in Greece and continued to exert influence over the Greek city-states. Although similar in size compared to the other Hellenistic kingdoms, Macedonia played a crucial role in the spread of Hellenism within Greece and the Balkans. We also have the Attalid Pergamon, a smaller but culturally significant kingdom in Asia Minor. Pergamon was known for its impressive library and its patronage of the arts. The city of Pergamon became a key cultural and intellectual centre during the Hellenistic period. These kingdoms, though politically fragmented, were united by their shared Greek culture and language. They maintained Greek traditions while also adopting and adapting elements from the local cultures they ruled, resulting in a rich and diverse cultural landscape. The Hellenistic period was marked by a remarkable flourishing of culture and intellectual life. Greek became the dominant language of administration, literature, and scholarship across the Hellenistic world, allowing for the spread of Greek ideas and knowledge. The Hellenistic era saw the development of new philosophical schools, such as Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, and Epicureanism, founded by Epicurus. These schools of thought addressed the challenges of life in a cosmopolitan and often turbulent world, offering guidance on how to achieve happiness and inner peace. The period was also a golden age for science and mathematics. Figures like Euclid, the father of geometry, and Archimedes, known for his work in physics and engineering, made groundbreaking contributions. In Alexandria, scholars at the museum, a research institute, made advances in astronomy, medicine, and geography, with figures like Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the Earth. Hellenistic art and architecture were characterized by greater realism and emotional expression compared to the idealized forms of the classical period. Sculpture and painting often depicted more dynamic and dramatic scenes, reflecting the diverse and complex world of the Hellenistic kingdoms. The construction of monumental buildings, such as the altar of Zeus in Pergamon, showcased the grandeur of Hellenistic architectural style. A defining feature of the Hellenistic period was the syncretism between Greek and local cultures. In Egypt, the Ptolemies merged Greek and Egyptian religious practices with the creation of the god Serapis, who combined elements of both traditions. In the Seleucid Empire, Greek settlers adopted aspects of Persian and Mesopotamian culture, resulting in a unique cultural synthesis. This blending of cultures extended to religion, language, art, and daily life, creating a cosmopolitan environment where Greek and local traditions coexisted and enriched each other. The Hellenistic world became a melting pot of ideas where Greek philosophy and science mingled with the knowledge and traditions of the Near East, Egypt, and beyond. Despite their cultural achievements, the Hellenistic kingdoms were often plagued by internal conflicts, wars of succession, and external threats. Over time, these factors weakened the kingdoms, making them vulnerable to the rising power of Rome. Rome's conquest of the Hellenistic world began in earnest in the 2nd century BCE, with the defeat of Macedonia in the Macedonian Wars and the annexation of Greece as the Roman province. The Ptolemaic kingdom, the last of the Hellenistic states, was eventually absorbed into the Roman Empire after the defeat of Cleopatra VII and Mark Antony in 31 BCE. While the political independence of the Hellenistic kingdoms came to an end, the cultural and intellectual legacy of Hellenism persisted. Greek culture continued to influence Roman civilization profoundly, shaping its art, literature, and philosophy and religion. The spread of Hellenistic ideas also laid the groundwork for the development of early Christianity and the eventual emergence of Byzantine culture. The Hellenistic period, therefore, stands as a crucial chapter in the history of the ancient world, marked by the expansion of Greek culture, the blending of traditions, and the creation of a cosmopolitan civilization that would leave a lasting impact on the Mediterranean and beyond. The Roman adoption of Hellenism is one of the most significant cultural transformations in ancient history, reflecting the deep and enduring influence of Greek culture on Roman society. As Rome expanded its power throughout the Mediterranean, it encountered the rich and sophisticated civilization of the Hellenistic world. Rather than rejecting Greek culture, the Romans embraced it, integrating Greek art, literature, philosophy, and religion into their own cultural framework. This process of cultural assimilation played a crucial role in shaping Roman identity and laid the foundation for the enduring legacy of Hellenism in Western civilization. The relationship between Rome and Greek culture began as early as the 5th century BCE with the Greek colonies in southern Italy and Sicily, known as Magna Graecia. These colonies were centers of Greek culture and commerce, and their proximity to Rome facilitated early cultural exchanges. The Romans were initially influenced by Greek architecture, religious practices, and artistic styles, which began to filter into Roman society during the Republican period. However, the most profound exposure to Greek culture came as the result of Rome's military conquests during the 3rd and 2nd century BCE. The Roman victories in the Macedonian Wars from 214 to 148 BCE and the subsequent subjugation of Greece and the Hellenistic kingdoms brought Rome into direct contact with the heart of the Hellenistic world. As Rome established itself as the dominant power in the Mediterranean, it began to absorb the cultural wealth of the conquered Greek cities. The Rome elite played a key role in the adoption of Hellenism, viewing Greek culture as a symbol of sophistication and intellectual refinement. Greek tutors were employed to educate Roman children, and knowledge of Greek language and literature became a mark of status among the Roman aristocracy. Many prominent Romans, including figures like Scipio Africanus and Julius Caesar, were deeply influenced by Greek philosophy, particularly Stoicism and Epicureanism, which provided a moral and ethical framework that resonated with Roman values. Greek art and architecture also became highly prized in Rome. Wealthy Romans collected Greek sculptures, commissioned Greek-style villas, and decorated their homes with mosaics and frescoes depicting scenes from Greek mythology. The construction of public buildings in Rome, such as temples, theatres, and baths, often drew inspiration from Greek architectural styles, blending them with Roman engineering techniques. The Roman adaptation of Greek culture was not limited to the elite. It permeated various aspects of everyday life. Public games, festivals, and religious ceremonies began to incorporate Greek elements and Greek literature, particularly the works of Homer, Hesiod, and the tragedians, was translated into Latin and performed in Roman theatres. One of the most significant aspects of Roman adoption of Hellenism was the syncretism between Greek and Roman religion. The Romans identified many of their gods with Greek deities, effectively merging the two pantheons. For example, the Roman god Jupiter was equated with the Greek god Zeus, Mars with Ares, and Venus with Aphrodite. This process of interpretatio Romana allowed the Romans to integrate Greek religious practices into their own traditions while maintaining a sense of continuity with their native beliefs. Greek mystery religions such as the cults of Dionysus or Bacchus and Orpheus also found a receptive audience in Rome. These cults, which offered initiates the promise of personal salvation and an afterlife, appealed to Romans seeking spiritual fulfillment beyond the traditional state-sponsored religion. The spread of these cults contributed to the diversification of religious life in Rome and laid the groundwork for the later adoption of other foreign religions, including Christianity. Greek literature had a profound impact on Roman literary traditions. Roman poets and playwrights such as Ennius, Plautus, and Terence drew heavily on Greek models, adapting Greek forms to the Latin language and Roman themes. The works of the great Greek poets, playwrights, and historians were studied and emulated by Roman writers, who sought to establish a literary tradition that could rival that of Greece. One of the most notable examples of this influence is the Roman poet Virgil, whose epic poem, the Aeneid, was modelled on the Greek epics of Homer. Although the Aeneid was a distinctly Roman work that celebrated Rome's origins and destiny, it was deeply rooted in the Greek epic tradition, both in form and content. In philosophy, Greek thought became an integral part of Roman intellectual life. The teachings of Greek philosophers such as Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics were studied and debated by Roman scholars. The philosopher and statesman Cicero, for instance, played a pivotal role in introducing Greek philosophy to a Roman audience, translating Greek philosophical concepts into Latin and adapting them to the Roman context. His works on ethics, politics, and rhetoric were heavily influenced by Greek philosophy and became foundational texts in Western intellectual history. As Hellenism became increasingly integrated into Roman culture, it underwent a process of Romanization, in which Greek cultural elements were adapted to fit Roman values and institutions. This blending of cultures resulted in a unique Greco-Roman civilization that combined the best of both worlds. The Romans were pragmatic in their approach to adopting Greek culture, often modifying it to serve their own needs. For example, while they admired Greek art and literature, they also valued Roman virtues such as duty, discipline, and patriotism, which they emphasized in their own cultural expressions. This synthesis of Greek and Roman elements created a cultural identity that was both distinctively Roman and deeply influenced by Hellenism. The adoption of Hellenism by Rome had a profound and lasting impact on the Roman Empire. Greek culture continued to flourish under Roman rule, particularly in the eastern provinces, where cities like Alexandria, Athens, and Antioch remained vibrant centers of Greek learning and culture. Even as Latin became the dominant language of the Western Roman Empire, Greek remained the language of scholarship and high culture in the East. The legacy of Hellenism in the Roman Empire extended beyond the classical period. As the Roman Empire evolved into the Byzantine Empire, Greek culture and Orthodox Christianity became the defining features of Byzantine civilization. The preservation and transmission of Greek knowledge through Byzantine scholars played a crucial role in the Renaissance and the eventual revival of classical learning in Western Europe. The arts and architecture of the Hellenistic period are distinguished by their innovation, diversity, and the fusion of Greek traditions with the influences of the broader Mediterranean and Near Eastern cultures. This era marked a departure from the restrained and idealized forms of the classical period, embracing a more dynamic and expressive style that reflected the complexity of the Hellenistic world. The art and architecture of this period not only embodied the grandeur of the newly established Hellenistic kingdoms, but also played a crucial role in communicating power, identity, and cultural syncretism. Hellenistic art represented a significant shift from the idealized, harmonious forms of classical period to a style characterized by realism, emotional expression, and dramatic movement. Artists of the Hellenistic era sought to capture the full range of human experience, depicting subjects with greater naturalism and psychological depth. Hellenistic artists developed techniques that allowed them to portray the human body and facial expressions with remarkable accuracy. This realism is evident in works such as the Laocoon, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and his Sons, a sculpture that vividly captures the anguish and struggle of its subjects. The attention to detail, from the tension in the muscles to the expressions of pain and despair, reflects the Hellenistic emphasis on portraying the complexities of human emotion. Hellenistic art often featured dynamic compositions that conveyed movement and action. Sculptures like the Winged Victory of Samothrace exemplify this trend, with its depiction of the goddess Nike poised as if descending from the heavens, her drapery billowing as if caught in the wind. The sense of movement and energy contrasts sharply with the more static and balanced forms of classical art. The expansion of the Hellenistic world brought with it a broadening of artistic themes. Artists began to explore a wider range of subjects, including depictions of the elderly, children, and even the grotesque. This diversity of subject matter reflected the cosmopolitan nature of the Hellenistic kingdoms, where different cultures and social classes interacted and influenced each other. The Hellenistic period also saw the rise of portraiture as a prominent artistic genre. Unlike the idealized representations of early periods, Hellenistic portraits often captured the individual characteristics and personalities of their subjects. Rulers and notable figures were depicted with realistic features, emphasizing their power, wisdom, and other qualities. The famous portrait of Alexander the Great, for example, combines idealized features with a lifelike portrayal that highlights his charisma and leadership. Hellenistic architecture reflects the wealth, power, and cultural diversity of the new Hellenistic kingdoms. The architectural achievements of this period were characterized by grandiose scale, innovative design, and the integration of different cultural influences. The Hellenistic rulers invested heavily in the construction of monumental buildings that demonstrated their power and served as symbols of their kingdom's prosperity. Cities such as Alexandria, Pergamon, and Antioch were designed with carefully planned grids, wide streets, and grand public spaces. These cities were adorned with impressive sculptures, including palaces, temples, theatres, and stoas, or covered walkways, which were often decorated with elaborate sculptures and reliefs. One of the most notable examples of Hellenistic architecture is the Temple of Apollo at Didyma, near Miletus. This massive temple, begun in the late 4th century BCE, was designed to house an oracle and was famous for its monumental scale and intricate design. The temple featured a grand colonnade, a large open courtyard, and an inner sanctum accessible by a long staircase, all of which contributed to its awe-inspiring presence. The altar of Zeus at Pergamon is another iconic example of Hellenistic architecture and art. This monumental altar, built in the 2nd century BCE, was decorated with a vast frieze depicting the gigantomachy, the battle between the gods and giants. The frieze is celebrated for its dynamic composition and the emotional intensity of its figures, which convey the drama of mythological struggle. The altar itself, with its grand staircase and imposing structure, served as both a religious site and a testament to the power of Pergamene kings. Hellenistic architects were also known for their innovative approaches to design and construction. The use of new materials and techniques allowed for the creation of new complex and ambitious structures. For example, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was a technological marvel of its time, standing over 100 meters tall and serving as a beacon for sailors navigating the busy harbour of Alexandria. The expansion of the Hellenistic world led to the incorporation of diverse architectural styles and motifs. Greek architectural forms were combined with elements from Egyptian, Persian, and Near Eastern traditions, creating a unique blend that reflected the multicultural nature of Hellenistic kingdoms. In cities like Alexandria, one could find Greek temples alongside Egyptian-style monuments, showcasing the harmonious coexistence of different cultural influences. The spread of Hellenistic art and architecture was facilitated by the extensive network of cities and trade routes established by the Hellenistic kingdoms. As Greek culture permeated these regions, local artists and architects adopted and adapted Hellenistic styles, leading to a widespread and lasting influence. The Romans were deeply influenced by Hellenistic art and architecture, incorporating Greek styles into their own cultural expressions. Roman temples, public buildings, and villas often featured Hellenistic elements such as the use of columns, friezes, and statues. The Roman adaptation of Greek art is evident in the numerous copies of Hellenistic sculptures that adorned Roman homes and public spaces. The legacy of Hellenistic art and architecture continued well beyond the ancient world, influencing the artistic and architectural traditions of the Renaissance and beyond. The emphasis on realism, emotional expression, and dynamic composition in Hellenistic art set a precedent for later Western art, while the grand architectural forms of the Hellenistic period provided a model for neoclassical architecture. The Hellenistic period was a vibrant era for philosophy and literature, marked by the proliferation of new ideas and evolution of literary forms, and the expansion of intellectual life across the diverse territories of the Hellenistic kingdoms. As Greek culture spread far beyond its traditional borders, it interacted with the absorbed influences from various other cultures, leading to the development of a rich and cosmopolitan intellectual landscape. Hellenistic philosophy and literature not only reflected the complexities of the time, but also laid the foundations for later developments in Western thought and literature. Hellenistic philosophy represents a period of significant intellectual activity and innovation, during which new schools of thought emerged to address the changing social, political, and personal concerns of the era. The uncertainty and instability that followed the death of Alexander the Great, along with the cultural blending of the Hellenistic world, prompted philosophers to explore new ways of understanding the human condition and achieving happiness. Founded by Zeno of Citium around 300 BCE, Stoicism became one of the most influential philosophical schools of the Hellenistic period. Stoicism taught that the key to a good life was living in accordance with nature and accepting the rational order of the universe, which was governed by divine reason, or logos. The Stoics emphasized the importance of self-control, virtue, and emotional resilience in the face of life's challenges. They believed that true happiness, or eudaimonia, could be achieved by cultivating inner peace and indifference to external circumstances. Prominent Stoic philosophers such as Cleanthus, Chrysippus, and later Roman thinkers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius played a crucial role in the development and dissemination of Stoic ideas. Epicurus, another major figure of Hellenistic philosophical landscape, founded the school of Epicureanism in the early 3rd century BCE. Epicureanism focused on the pursuit of pleasure, or hedonism, as the primary goal of life, but it advocated for a rational and moderate approach to pleasure, emphasizing the avoidance of pain and anxiety. Epicurus taught that the highest pleasure was the absence of physical pain and mental distress, which could be achieved through simple living, friendship, and the study of philosophy. The Epicurean philosophy was materialistic, positing that the universe was composed of atoms and void, and that the gods did not interfere in human affairs. Epicureanism attracted a wide following in the Hellenistic world and later influenced Roman thinkers like Lucretius, who celebrated Epicurean ideas in his poem De Rerum Natura. The Hellenistic period also saw the rise of skepticism, particularly in the form of Pyrrhonism, founded by Pyrrho of Elis. Skeptics questioned the possibility of certain knowledge and argued that humans should suspend judgment, or epoche, on all matters, leading to a state of mental tranquility, or ataraxia. Pyrrhonian skepticism challenged the dogmatic assertions of other philosophical schools and emphasized the importance of doubt and inquiry as a means of avoiding error and achieving inner peace. Another important philosophical movement of the Hellenistic era was Cynicism, which originated with Diogenes of Sinope. Cynics rejected conventional social norms and values, advocating for a life in accordance with nature, free from material possessions and societal expectations. They sought to live a life of virtue and self-sufficiency, often engaging in provocative acts to challenge the status quo and expose the superficiality of society. Although Cynicism was more of a way of life than a formal philosophical school, it had a lasting impact on later philosophical traditions, including Stoicism. The Hellenistic period was also characterized by a trend toward eclecticism and syncretism in philosophy. Many thinkers combined elements from different philosophical schools to create new hybrid systems of thought that addressed the diverse needs and interests of cosmopolitan society. This blending of ideas reflected the broader cultural syncretism of the Hellenistic world and contributed to the richness and diversity of intellectual life during this period. Hellenistic literature was marked by a flourishing of new genres, styles, and themes reflecting the cosmopolitan and diverse nature of the Hellenistic world. As Greek culture spread across the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond, it absorbed influences from other cultures and adapted to the tastes and interests of a broader audience. This period saw the development of sophisticated literary forms and the exploration of new subjects and the continuation of Greek literary tradition in innovative ways. Hellenistic poetry was characterized by its refinement, technical precision, and exploration of personal and everyday themes. The most prominent poetic genre of the period was the epilion, or the short epic, which often focused on mythological or romantic themes. The Alexandrian poets such as Callimachus, Theocritus, and Apollonius of Rhodes were central figures in this literary movement. Callimachus, for example, was known for his highly polished and erudite style, and he famously declared that a big book is a big evil, emphasized the value of brevity and precision in poetry. Theocritus is credited with inventing the pastoral genre, which depicted the idealized lives of shepherds and rural life. His ideals are celebrated for their vivid descriptions and emotional depth. Apollonius of Rhodes made a significant contribution to Hellenistic literature with his epic poem Argonautica, which recounts the myth of Jason and the Argonauts. Unlike the grand epics of Homer, Apollonius' work is more focused on the psychological complexity of his characters and the emotional nuances of their relationships. Argonautica reflects the Hellenistic interest in human psychology and the personal dimensions of mythological stories. Although the production of new tragedies and comedies declined during the Hellenistic period, earlier works, particularly those of Euripides and Menander, remained popular. Menander, a playwright of the new comedy genre, was especially influential. His comedies, which focused on domestic situations, social issues, and character-driven humor, were widely read and imitated throughout the Hellenistic world, and later adapted by Roman playwrights such as Plautus and Terence. Hellenistic literature also saw the development of historiography and biography as important literary genres. Historians such as Polybius and Diodorus Siculus chronicled the events of the Hellenistic world, offering insights into the politics, wars, and cultural exchanges of the time. Polybius' histories are particularly notable for their analysis of the rise of Rome and the impact of Roman imperialism on the Mediterranean world. Biography also emerged as a significant genre, with works such as Plutarch's Parallel Lives, which provided moral and ethical reflections through the comparison of famous Greek and Roman figures. The Hellenistic period was a time of great intellectual curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge. Didactic poetry, which sought to educate as well as entertain, became a popular genre. One of the most famous examples is Noumenia by Aratus, a poem that describes the constellations and celestial phenomena. Scientific and technical writings also flourished, with scholars such as Euclid and Archimedes making groundbreaking contributions to mathematics, physics, and engineering. These works were often written in a clear and accessible style, reflecting the Hellenistic emphasis on the dissemination of knowledge. The Hellenistic period was also an era of literary scholarship and criticism, centered in the great library of Alexandria. Scholars such as Denotatus, Aristarchus, and Callimachus played a key role in preserving and interpreting the literary heritage of Greece. They compiled, edited, and commented on the works of earlier poets, ensuring their transmission to future generations. The Alexandrian scholars also developed new methods of textual criticism and created comprehensive catalogues of literary works, which laid the foundations for modern literary scholarship. The intellectual achievements of the Hellenistic period had a profound and lasting impact on the development of Western philosophy and literature. The philosophical schools of Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Skepticism continued to influence Roman thought and later played a crucial role in the development of Christian theology and medieval philosophy. Hellenistic literature, with its emphasis on technical mastery, innovation, and exploration of human experience, set the stage for the literary traditions of Rome and ultimately the Renaissance. The Hellenistic period was a time of significant advancements in education and the spread of Greek language, which became the lingua franca across the vast territories of the Hellenistic kingdoms. These developments played a crucial role in unifying the diverse populations under Greek cultural influence and facilitating the exchange of ideas, knowledge, and traditions. The educational systems established during this period laid the groundwork for intellectual life throughout the Mediterranean and beyond, while the widespread use of Greek language fostered a shared cultural identity that transcended regional and ethnic boundaries. Education during the Hellenistic period evolved into a more structured and formalized system, reflecting the increased importance placed on intellectual pursuits, cultural transmission, and civic responsibility. Educational institutions, particularly in the major cities of Hellenistic kingdoms, became centers of learning and scholarship, attracting students from across the Mediterranean. The gymnasium, originally a training ground for physical exercise, evolved during the Hellenistic period into an important educational institution where young men were taught not only physical skills but also rhetoric, philosophy, literature, and sciences. The gymnasia became cultural hubs where the sons of the elite were prepared for public life, gaining the knowledge and virtues expected of citizens. Alongside the gymnasium, the ephebeia served as a system of civic and military training for young men, further emphasizing the role of education in shaping responsible and capable citizens. In the Hellenistic cities, education was closely linked to the polis, or city-state, which played a central role in organizing and funding educational institutions. Civic pride and competition between cities often led to the establishment of schools and libraries as symbols of cultural and intellectual achievement. These institutions helped to maintain Greek cultural identity and foster a sense of community among the educated classes. The proliferation of philosophical schools during the Hellenistic period contributed significantly to the intellectual life of the time. In addition to the major schools of Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Skepticism, the Lyceum, founded by Aristotle, and the Academy, founded by Plato, continued to operate, attracting students from across the Hellenistic world. These schools provided advanced education in philosophy, ethics, science, and rhetoric, and their influence extended far beyond Greece, shaping the intellectual elite of the Hellenistic kingdoms. The establishment of great libraries, most notably the Library of Alexandria, marked a significant development in Hellenistic education. The Library of Alexandria, with its vast collection of texts and manuscripts, became the preeminent center of scholarship in the ancient world. Scholars from various fields, including literature, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, gathered at the library to study, write, and teach. The library not only preserved the literary and scientific achievements of earlier periods, but also fostered new research and innovation. Although education in the Hellenistic period was primarily focused on men, there is evidence that some women, particularly those from wealthy and aristocratic families, received an education. Women who were educated often engaged in literary, philosophical, and artistic pursuits, and a few even became prominent figures in intellectual circles. The increasing participation of women in cultural life, though limited, reflected the broader social changes of Hellenistic era. The spread of the Greek language, known as Koine Greek, was one of the most significant cultural developments of the Hellenistic period. As the common language of the administration, trade, and education, Koine Greek facilitated communication and cultural exchange across the vast territories of the Hellenistic kingdoms and beyond. The conquests of Alexander the Great were instrumental in spreading Greek language and culture throughout the Eastern Mediterranean, the Near East, and parts of Asia. Greek became the language of the ruling elite and administration in the newly established Hellenistic kingdoms, replacing or supplementing local languages. This linguistic shift was a key factor in the Hellenization of these regions, as Greek became the medium of governance, commerce, and cultural activities. The Koine Greek that emerged during the Hellenistic period was a more standardized and simplified form of the language, making it accessible to broader population. Unlike the classical Greek of earlier periods, which was characterized by regional dialects and complex grammar, Koine Greek was more uniform, allowing it to function as a common language for people of diverse linguistic backgrounds. Koine Greek became the language of literature, philosophy, and science, as well as the medium for the spread of Hellenistic culture. In the Hellenistic kingdoms, Greek was not only the language of the ruling elite, but also the language of education, legal documents, and public inscriptions. This widespread use of Greek helped to create a sense of cultural unity among the diverse populations of the Hellenistic world, despite the persistence of local languages and traditions. In cities like Alexandria, Antioch, and Pergamon, Greek served as the lingua franca, enabling communication and interaction among people from different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. The spread of Greek also had a profound impact on religious practices and beliefs. Many local deities were identified with Greek gods, and religious texts were translated into Greek. The translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, known as the Septuagint, is one of the most significant examples of this linguistic and cultural integration. The translation not only made the Hebrew scriptures accessible to the Greek-speaking Jewish communities of the Hellenistic world, but also influenced the development of early Christian thought and the spread of Christianity. The role of Greek as the lingua franca of the Hellenistic world extended far beyond the territories directly controlled by the Hellenistic kingdoms. Greek was widely spoken and understood across the Mediterranean and even into parts of India and Central Asia. This widespread use of Greek facilitated trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange on an unprecedented scale, contributing to the cosmopolitan nature of the Hellenistic world. The education systems and the spread of the Greek language during the Hellenistic period had a lasting impact on the ancient world and beyond. Greek became the language of intellectual and cultural life throughout the Roman Empire, and the educational traditions established in the Hellenistic period influenced the development of Roman education and, later, the educational systems of the medieval and Renaissance periods. Greek remained the language of scholarship, science, and philosophy for centuries, and the works produced during the Hellenistic period continued to be studied and revered. The spread of Greek also facilitated the transmission of knowledge from the ancient world to the Islamic world and later to Europe, playing a crucial role in the preservation and dissemination of classical learning. Traditional Greek religion during the Hellenistic period remained deeply rooted in its ancient practices and beliefs, yet it also evolved as it encountered and absorbed elements from the cultures with which it came into contact. The polytheistic nature of Greek religion, with its pantheon of gods and goddesses, was inherently flexible, allowing for the incorporation of foreign deities and religious customs into its framework. This adaptability facilitated the spread and transformation of Greek religious practices across the Hellenistic kingdoms. The traditional Greek pantheon, dominated by the Olympian gods such as Zeus, Hera, Athena, and Apollo, remained central to Greek religious life during the Hellenistic period. These deities were worshipped through rituals, sacrifices, and festivals, maintaining the key practices that had defined Greek religion for centuries. Temples dedicated to the gods served as focal points for civic and religious activities, and large festivals such as the Pan-Hellenic Games continued to be celebrated in honor of the gods. Zeus, the king of the gods, continued to hold a prominent position in Greek religion. He was venerated as the protector of justice, hospitality, and order in both the human and divine realms. Temples dedicated to Zeus, such as the great sanctuary at Olympia, remained important centers of worship and pilgrimage. Apollo, the god of prophecy, healing, and the arts, was another key figure in traditional Greek religion. His sanctuary at Delphi, home to the famous Oracle of Delphi, remained a significant religious site during the Hellenistic period. Pilgrims and rulers from across the Hellenistic world continued to consult the oracle for guidance on matters ranging from personal affairs to political decisions. In addition to the Olympian gods, traditional Greek religion also encompassed the worship of local deities, heroes, and nature spirits. Each city or region had its own patron deities and unique religious customs. For example, Athens continued to honor Athena, its patron goddess, with festivals such as the Panathenea. The cults of local heroes such as Heracles and Theseus also remained integral to Greek religious identity, providing a link between the divine and human realms. Traditional Greek religion was inseparable from civic life, as it played a vital role in maintaining social cohesion and political order. Religion was a public affair, with rituals, sacrifices, and festivals often organized by the state or ruling authorities. These events reinforced the unity of the polis, or the city-state, and affirmed the relationship between the citizens and the gods. In the Hellenistic period, state-sponsored rituals and festivals continued to be central to Greek religious practice. Rulers often participated in or sponsored religious ceremonies to legitimize their authority and demonstrate their piety. Public sacrifices, processions, and games were occasions for communal celebration, reinforcing civic identity and religious devotion. The priesthood in traditional Greek religion was typically a civic duty, often held by prominent citizens or members of the ruling elite. Priests and priestesses were responsible for maintaining the temples, conducting sacrifices, and overseeing religious festivals. In some cases, kings and rulers of the Hellenistic kingdoms took on the role of high priest or divine representative, blending political and religious authority. While traditional public worship was an important aspect of Greek religion, private religious practices such as participation in mystery cults also gained prominence during the Hellenistic period. Mystery religions such as the Eleusinian mysteries dedicated to Demeter and Persephone offered initiates a more personal and intimate religious experience, often promising salvation or an afterlife. These cults existed alongside traditional religious practices and provided an alternative form of spiritual engagement. One of the key features of traditional Greek religion during the Hellenistic period was its ability to adapt and incorporate foreign religious practices. As Greek culture spread through the conquests of Alexander the Great and the establishment of Hellenistic kingdoms, it came into contact with the religions of Egypt, Persia, Mesopotamia, and other regions. The polytheistic nature of Greek religion allowed for the identification and assimilation of foreign gods into the Greek pantheon. a process known as Interpretatio Graeca. Through Interpretatio Graeca, foreign deities were often equated with Greek gods based on perceived similarities in their roles or attributes. For example, the Egyptian god Amun was identified with Zeus, and the Persian god Mithra was associated with Apollo or Helios. This practice facilitated the integration of diverse religious traditions into the Hellenistic world and allowed Greek religion to remain relevant in a cosmopolitan, multicultural context. The blending of religion and politics was further exemplified by the practice of ruler worship, where Hellenistic kings were often honored as divine or semi-divine figures. This practice began with Alexander the Great, who was venerated as a god in some regions, and continued with his successors. Temples and cults were established in honor of Hellenistic rulers, and their images were sometimes associated with traditional deities, further illustrating the flexibility of Greek religious practices during this period. While traditional Greek religion maintained its core beliefs and practices, it also underwent changes in response to the cultural and political shifts of the Hellenistic era. The growing influence of Eastern religions, the rise of mystery cults, and the deification of rulers reflected the dynamic nature of Greek religious life during this period. Despite these changes, many aspects of traditional Greek religion persisted well into the Roman period. The worship of the Olympian gods, the importance of civic religion, and the continued veneration of local deities and heroes ensured that Greek religious traditions remained a vital part of Hellenistic cultural identity. Religious syncretism, the blending of different religious traditions and beliefs, was a hallmark of the Hellenistic period. Following the conquest of Alexander the Great and the subsequent rise of the Hellenistic kingdoms, cultures and religions from Greece, Egypt, Persia, and the Near East came into close contact. The resulting exchanges led to the merging of religious practices and deities, creating new forms of worship that incorporated elements from diverse traditions. This syncretism was not just a passive blending of practices, but an active process of adaptation that reflected the cosmopolitan nature of the Hellenistic world. The conquests of Alexander the Great played a key role in fostering religious syncretism. As Alexander's empire stretched from Greece to Egypt, Persia, and India, it brought together peoples from a wide array of cultural and religious backgrounds. Greek colonists settled in newly established cities, while local populations were exposed to Greek customs, including religion. Alexander himself encouraged this blending by showing reverence for local gods and promoting the identification of foreign deities with Greek gods. Alexander's own deification contributed to the process of syncretism. He adopted aspects of divinity from both Greek and Eastern traditions, such as being identified with the Egyptian god Amun-Ra and the Greek god Zeus. This fusion of divine roles made it easier for future rulers and cultures to engage in religious blending, as it provided a precedent for the coexistence of multiple religious identities. After Alexander's death, his generals, known as the Diadochi, established Hellenistic kingdoms across the former empire. These rulers maintained Greek as the dominant cultural influence, while also incorporating local customs, leading to future religious intermingling. In regions like Egypt and Persia, Greek culture and religion coexisted with native practices, creating a fertile ground for religious syncretism. Egypt was one of the most prominent religions where religious syncretism flourished during the Hellenistic period. Under the Ptolemies, the Greek rulers of Egypt Native Egyptian religious traditions were blended with Greek beliefs, creating new forms of worship and hybrid deities. One of the most notable examples of syncretism in Egypt was the creation of the god Serapis. Serapis was a composite deity, combining elements of the Greek god Zeus and Hades with the Egyptian god Osiris. The Ptolemies promoted Serapis as a unifying figure who could be worshipped by both Greeks and Egyptians, symbolizing the merging of the two cultures. His worship spread throughout the Hellenistic world, demonstrating the power of syncretic religion to bridge cultural divides. The Egyptian goddess Isis also underwent a transformation during the Hellenistic period. Her cult gained popularity among the Greeks, and she became associated with Greek goddesses such as Demeter and Aphrodite. The worship of Isis spread far beyond Egypt, becoming one of the most widespread and influential mystery cults of the Hellenistic and later Roman periods. Isis was portrayed as a universal goddess with powers that transcended cultural and religious boundaries, further illustrating the syncretic nature of Hellenistic religion. In the Near East, particularly in regions like Persia and Mesopotamia, Greek religious traditions encountered long-established local beliefs, leading to the fusion of deities and religious practices. The process of syncretism in these areas often involved the identification of local gods with their Greek counterparts, known as interpretatio Graeca, and the development of new cults that blended both Greek and indigenous elements. Mithraism is an example of a syncretic religion that blended Persian, Greek and Roman elements. Mithras, originally a Persian deity associated with light and justice, became popular in the Roman Empire as part of the mystery cult. The worship of Mithras incorporated aspects of Greek and Roman religious traditions while maintaining its Persian roots, reflecting the interconnected religious landscape of the Hellenistic world. Many local deities in the Near East were identified with Greek gods, facilitating the integration of Greek religion into the region. For example, the Phoenician god Melkot was equated with the Greek hero Heracles, and the Persian god Ahura Mazda was sometimes associated with Zeus. This process of identification allowed Greek settlers to worship familiar deities in foreign lands while also showing respect for local religious traditions. The Hellenistic period saw a rise in the popularity of mystery religions, which often incorporated syncretic elements from different cultures. Mystery religions offered initiates secret knowledge and the promise of a personal connection with the divine, often focused on themes of death, rebirth, and salvation. These cults transcended traditional civic religion, appealing to individuals seeking more intimate and esoteric spiritual experiences. The cult of Isis, as previously mentioned, became a prominent mystery religion during the Hellenistic period. It combined Egyptian religious practices with Greek philosophical ideas, particularly those related to the afterlife and the soul's immortality. The cult spread throughout the Hellenistic and Roman worlds, appealing to people with diverse cultural backgrounds. Although rooted in traditional Greek religion, the Eleusinian mysteries dedicated to Demeter and Persephone absorbed influences from other religious traditions during the Hellenistic period. The mysteries promised initiates a deeper understanding of life, death, and rebirth, drawing on themes that resonated with both Greek and non-Greek participants. This openness to foreign influence contributed to their lasting appeal. Religious syncretism in the Hellenistic period was not merely a cultural phenomenon, but also had political implications. Hellenistic rulers often used syncretic religion as a tool to legitimize their power and unite their diverse subjects under a shared religious framework. Hellenistic kings, such as the Ptolemies in Egypt and the Seleucids in Persia, often encouraged the development of ruler cults that blended their own images with those of traditional gods. By associating themselves with both Greek and local deities, these rulers sought to solidify their authority and appeal to both Greek settlers and native populations. The worship of rulers as divine figures was a clear expression of the political utility and syncretic religion in the Hellenistic world. The construction of temples dedicated to syncretic deities, such as the Serapeum in Alexandria, symbolized the blending of religious traditions and the political union of the Hellenistic kingdoms. These temples served as centers of both religious worship and political loyalty, reinforcing the connection between religion and state. The religious syncretism of the Hellenistic period had a lasting impact on the religious landscape of the Mediterranean world. The fusion of Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and other religious traditions continued into the Roman period, shaping the development of Roman religion and early Christianity. Many syncretic deities and cults, such as Serapis, Isis, and Mithras, remained popular well into the Roman Empire, influencing both pagan and Christian religious practices. The religious syncretism of the Hellenistic period also had a profound and lasting impact on the development of early Christianity. As Christianity emerged in the context of the Greco-Roman world, it absorbed and transformed elements of Hellenistic religion, philosophy, and culture. The spread of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire was facilitated by the religious environment created by Hellenistic syncretism, which had already laid the groundwork for the blending of diverse traditions and beliefs. Early Christianity, while distinct in its monotheism and teachings, was shaped by Hellenistic thought in several key areas, including theology, ritual practices, and philosophical outlooks. The Hellenistic period introduced new ways of thinking about the divine, the cosmos, and salvation, which influenced early Christian theology. Many of these ideas stemmed from the religious syncretism that fused Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Near Eastern religious traditions, creating a more abstract and universal understanding of the divine. Although traditional Greek religion was polytheistic, Hellenistic philosophy, especially Stoicism and Platonism, introduced the idea of a single supreme divine principle. This concept of a universal transcendent God paralleled Christian monotheism. Additionally, the henotheistic tendencies in Hellenistic religion, where one God was elevated above others, resonated with the Christian emphasis on the worship of one true God, even if other spiritual beings, angels and demons, etc., existed in a lesser capacity. Mystery religions such as the cults of Isis, Mithras, and the Eleusinian mysteries offered initiates promises of personal salvation and afterlife and eternal life, ideas that were central to early Christianity. These mystery religions emphasized the individual's connection to the divine and often portrayed salvation as a form of spiritual rebirth. Early Christian doctrines of resurrection, eternal life, and redemption through Christ drew upon these concepts, reinterpreting them within a Christian framework. In regards to Platonism and Stoicism, these schools of thought provided early Christians with a vocabulary and conceptual framework for discussing theological issues such as the nature of God, the soul, and the moral life. Platonic philosophy, with its focus on the distinction between the material and the spiritual worlds, influenced early Christian views of the body and soul. Plato's concept of the immortal soul, striving to return to a perfect divine realm, found resonance in Christian teachings on the afterlife and the resurrection of the soul. Christian theologians such as Augustine later drew heavily on Platonic ideas to articulate Christian doctrines, including the notion of the soul's ascent to God. The Stoic and Platonic concept of the Logos, a rational principle governing the universe, was adapted by early Christians to describe Christ's role in creation and salvation. The Gospel of John famously begins with the statement, "In the beginning was the Word," or Logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This identification of Jesus with the Logos allowed early Christians to present their beliefs in terms that would be familiar to educated Hellenistic audiences, emphasizing the universality of Christ's message. Early Christian rituals, particularly baptism and the Eucharist, were influenced by existing Hellenistic religious practices. Mystery religions and other syncretic cults had established traditions of initiation, purification, and communal meals, which provided a model for Christian rites. Baptism, the ritual of initiation into the Christian faith, was paralleled with purification rituals found in Hellenistic mystery religions and Judaism. In both cases, water symbolized purification, rebirth, and the beginning of a new spiritual life. Early Christians imbued baptism with new meaning, emphasizing the believer's identification with the death and resurrection of Christ. The Christian Eucharist, in which believers share bread and wine in remembrance of Christ's Last Supper, was influenced by communal meals practiced in mystery cults, such as those of Mithras and Dionysus. These meals were often viewed as a form of spiritual communion with the divine. Christianity reinterpreted this tradition, framing the Eucharist as a participation in the blood and body of Christ and a symbol of unity among believers. The Hellenistic world's linguistic and cultural unity, established through the spread of Greek as the common language, or Koine Greek, and the blending of religious traditions, created favorable conditions for the spread of Christianity. Greek served as the language of the New Testament, and Christian missionaries such as the Apostle Paul traveled extensively through Hellenistic cities, using the existing infrastructure and cultural networks to spread the new religion. Hellenistic cities like Alexandria, Antioch, and Corinth became early centers of Christian activity. These cities were cosmopolitan, with populations that included Greeks, Jews, and people from various cultural backgrounds, making them ideal environments for the spread of a new religion. Christianity's message and the idea of salvation for all people resonated in these diverse urban settings, and the syncretic nature of Hellenistic religion made the population more receptive to new religious ideas. The large Jewish diaspora in Hellenistic cities also played a key role in the spread of Christianity. Many early Christians were Jewish, and the syncretic nature of Hellenistic Judaism, which had already adapted aspects of Greek thought, provided a bridge for the spread of Christian teachings. The translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, the Septuagint, made Jewish scriptures accessible to non-Jewish converts and influenced Christian theological development. Gnosticism, a religious movement that emerged in the early Christian period, was deeply influenced by Hellenistic syncretism. Gnosticism blended elements of Greek philosophy, Eastern mysticism, and Christian teachings, emphasizing the dualism between the material and spiritual worlds and the pursuit of secret knowledge, or gnosis, as the path to salvation. Gnostic thought often portrayed the material world as the creation of a lesser, imperfect deity, while the true God resided in a higher spiritual realm. This dualistic view reflected Platonic philosophy, but was seen as heretical to early Christian leaders. Nonetheless, Gnosticism's emphasis on salvation through knowledge and spiritual ascent had parallels with Christian teachings on redemption and spiritual transformation. The rise of Gnosticism and other syncretic movements forced the early Christian church to define its doctrines more clearly. In response to Gnostic interpretations in Christianity, early Christian theologians such as Irenaeus and Tertullian articulated orthodox positions on the nature of Christ, the material world, and the role of faith in salvation. This process of doctrinal clarification shaped the development of Christian theology and distinguished it from competing religious traditions. The influence of Hellenistic religious syncretism on early Christianity extended beyond the formative centuries of the faith. As Christianity became the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, it continued to absorb elements of Hellenistic culture, philosophy, and religious practice. The synthesis of Hellenistic and Christian ideas shaped the development of Christian theology, liturgy, and art, leaving a lasting legacy on Western religious thought. In recent decades, the revival of ancient Hellenic religious practices, often referred to as Hellenism, has gained traction among those who seek to reconnect with the spiritual and religious traditions of ancient Greece. Modern Hellenism is a reconstructionist religion that strives to revive and adapt the polytheistic worship of ancient Greek gods, along with associated rituals, festivals, and ethical principles. These practices, while grounded in ancient sources, have been reimagined for contemporary life, forming a living, evolving tradition. At the core of modern Hellenism is the worship of the ancient Greek pantheon, including deities such as Zeus, Hera, Athena, Apollo, and many others. Practitioners believe in the existence of these gods as distinct, powerful beings who interact with the world and human lives. Modern Hellenists generally adhere to the ancient Greek understanding of a polytheistic cosmos, in which each deity governs specific aspects of the natural world, human experience, or moral virtues. Zeus is often regarded as the ruler of the gods, overseeing justice and law, while other deities such as Poseidon, Demeter, and Artemis preside over the seas, harvests, and wildlife, respectively. These divine relationships are expressed in both personal worship and communal rituals. In addition to the worship of the Olympian gods, modern Hellenists may also honor their ancestors and ancient heroes, such as Heracles, Theseus, and Achilles. These figures are venerated as exemplars of moral strength, courage, and wisdom. Hero cults, common in ancient Greece, have been revived as a way to connect with both the gods and humanity's legendary past. Modern Hellenistic rituals aim to recreate the spirit and form of ancient Greek religious practices, with adjustments for contemporary contexts. Rituals generally include offerings, hymns, prayers, and invocations to the gods, along with observance of traditional festivals that align with the seasonal and agricultural cycles. One of the central aspects of modern Hellenistic worship is the practice of making offerings to the gods. While ancient Greeks often offered animal sacrifices, modern practitioners typically substitute these with food offerings such as bread, fruits, wine, and olive oil. Libations are also included, and also incense. These offerings are made in a respectful and sacred manner, intended to honor the gods and strengthen the bond between worshippers and the divine. Worship often occurs at home altars or in nature, where Hellenists create sacred spaces to honor the gods. These altars typically feature statues or images of the gods, candles, and sacred objects. Outdoor worship may involve natural landmarks such as rivers, mountains or groves, which were seen as dwelling places for particular deities in ancient Greece. Home altars will typically focus on the hearth and the worship of Hestia and the Agathos Daimon, also often called Zeus in the aspect of the protector of the household. Prayers in modern Hellenism are often spoken or chanted, and practitioners frequently use hymns from ancient sources such as the Homeric hymns and the Orphic hymns. These texts, composed in antiquity, have been preserved and serve as a connection to the spiritual practices of ancient Greeks. Some Hellenists also compose new hymns and prayers to honor the gods in ways that resonate with modern sensibilities. Celebrating traditional Greek festivals is an important part of modern Hellenism, as it aligns practitioners with the sacred rhythms of the gods and the cosmos. Many Hellenic festivals are tied to the agricultural cycle, the seasons, or the mythological stories of the gods. One of the most widely celebrated festivals in modern Hellenism is the Panathenea, an ancient festival held in honor of the goddess Athena, the protector of Athens. Modern celebrations may include reciting hymns to Athena, offering libations, and organizing public events or virtual gatherings to commemorate her role as a goddess of wisdom, war, and the arts. The Dionysia, an ancient festival in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy, is also observed by many modern Hellenists. This celebration often includes joyous rituals, theatrical performances, echoing the festival's origins in Greek drama, and offerings of wine to invoke the god's blessings and of pleasure and transformation. A key example of how modern practitioners engage with Hellenic tradition is through the observance of monthly rituals during the new moon phase. These celebrations would be Deipnon, Noumenia, and Agathos Daimon. These new moon rituals serve as a structured way for worshippers to honor the gods, cleanse their homes and themselves, and invite prosperity and good fortune. Deipnon is dedicated to Hecate, goddess of the crossroads and magic, observed on the last day of the lunar month, typically known as the dark moon, or as we know it now as the dark moon. Practitioners clean their homes, they offer food, traditionally left at crossroads, and reflect on any impurities or negative influences to be cleansed. Noumenia, the first day of the new lunar month, is celebration of renewal and fresh beginnings. Worshippers honor the household gods, particularly Hestia, and offer prayers for blessings and success in the coming month. Agathos Daimon is observed the day after Noumenia, honoring the personal guardian spirit or good spirit of the household. This ritual encourages positive energy, prosperity, and protection for individuals and families. The Hellenic calendar includes many festivals, such as the Eleusinian Mysteries in honor of Demeter and Persephone, the Thesmophoria for women's fertility, and the Poseidia, celebrating Poseidon. Modern Hellenists may also celebrate solstices and equinoxes, drawing connections between these natural events and mythological cycles of death and rebirth associated with the gods. Modern Hellenism is not just a religion of rituals and festivals. It also emphasizes living a virtuous life in accordance with ethical principles derived from ancient Greek philosophy and religious teachings. Many practitioners seek to embody the Greek concept of arete, excellence or virtue, striving for personal integrity, honor, and a balanced life. Modern Hellenists often turn to the Delphic Maxims, a collection of short ethical sayings attributed to the Oracle of Delphi, as guidelines for moral behavior. These maxims include advice such as know thyself, nothing in excess, and respect your elders, which encourage self-awareness, moderation, and respect for others. Many modern Hellenists incorporate philosophical ideas from Stoicism, Platonism, or Aristotelian ethics into their spiritual practice. These schools of thought, which originated in the classical and Hellenistic periods, emphasize the cultivation of reason and pursuit of knowledge and living in accordance with nature. For some, Hellenism provides both a religious and philosophical path to a virtuous and fulfilling life. While modern Hellenism remains a relatively small movement, it has gained visibility and cohesion through the online communities and social media. The rise of the internet has allowed Hellenic polytheists to connect with one another, share resources, and participate in rituals regardless of geographic distance. In the absence of physical temples or centralized institutions, many Hellenists participate in online rituals, discussions, and festivals. Social media platforms, blogs, and forums provide spaces for practitioners to learn about ancient Greek religion, discuss modern adaptations, and organize virtual ceremonies. These online communities foster a sense of belonging and shared identity despite the physical dispersion of practitioners. Within the modern Hellenistic community, there is a spectrum of practice. Some adhere to a strict reconstructionist approach, aiming to faithfully recreate ancient Greek religious practices based on historical texts and archaeological evidence. Others take a more syncretic and personal approach, blending Hellenic traditions with influences from other pagan or spiritual practices. This diversity reflects the flexibility of modern Hellenism as it evolves to meet the needs of contemporary worshippers. In recent years, modern Hellenism has sought greater recognition as an official religion, particularly in Greece, where the revival of ancient religious practices has encountered resistance from the dominant Greek Orthodox Church. However, some strides have been made toward legal recognition and the establishment of modern Hellenic temples. In Greece and other countries, efforts have been made to create dedicated spaces for the worship of the ancient gods. For instance, modern temples dedicated to Zeus, Athena, and other deities have been constructed, and legal battles for the right to perform religious ceremonies at ancient sites like the Acropolis continue. While modern Hellenism is most prominent in Greece, it has a growing international presence, particularly in Europe, the United States, and Australia. International Hellenists often adapt their practices to their local environments while maintaining a connection to the ancient Greek cultural and religious heritage. Hellenism, as both an ancient cultural phenomenon and a modern spiritual path, embodies a rich and enduring legacy that continues to inspire individuals across the world. Its influence has shaped Western civilization in profound ways through philosophy, art, politics, education, and religion, while offering a timeless framework for understanding the world and humanity's place within it. The revival of Hellenism in contemporary times is not simply an act of historical reenactment. Rather, it reflects a deep desire to reconnect with the wisdom, virtues, and spirituality of the ancient Greeks. In embracing Hellenism today, modern practitioners not only honor the gods and traditions of the past, but also adapt them to meet the challenges of contemporary life. This fusion of ancient and modern resonates with the core of Hellenistic philosophy, which emphasizes the integration of knowledge, self-awareness, and community. As the influence of Hellenism continues to evolve, it remains a source of inspiration, offering guidance on how to live meaningfully, seek truth, and cultivate excellence. Ultimately, the enduring power of Hellenism lies in its ability to transcend time and space, reminding us of the universal human quest for knowledge, beauty, and connection to the divine. Whether through its impacts on Western thought, its role in shaping modern religious practices, or its ongoing presence in culture and education. Hellenism continues to provide a blueprint for understanding both the world and the self in profound and lasting ways. Now, when it comes to books and resources, there are a plethora that you can find regarding Greek mythology. And you might want to also read some of the Greek classics, such as Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. The classics that you will definitely want to get your hands on are the Homeric hymns by Homer and the Orphic hymns by Orpheus. You can find both of these for free online. However, you might want to compare translations. Those by Apostolos en Athanasakis, that's a difficult name, are usually mentioned as the better translations. So I have included them in the Amazon link below in the description, and also in the little eye icon. If you click on there, you can go straight to the folder through those links. However, concerning Hellenism itself, I would strongly recommend Hellenismos, Practicing Greek Polytheism Today by Tony Miazwicki, and also Hellenic Polytheism, Household Worship by Christos Pandion Panopoulos. The next thing is to get to know Greek mythology itself, and as a starter, I would definitely direct you to Stephen Fry's excellent book, Mythos. For a great website with a load of resources, take a look at hellenion.org. Again, the link to that is in the description below. So I have created a folder on my Amazon storefront, so if you do want to grab any of those books that I mentioned, by Tony Miazwicki and the one by Christos Pandion Panopoulos, which were titled Hellenismos, Practicing Greek Polytheism Today, and Hellenic Polytheism, Household Worship. And also Stephen Fry's book Mythos is in there as well. Can go and grab those from the Amazon storefront. And as always, if you do go and purchase the paperback of any of the books, or if you go through the link and buy any other paperbacks or anything else on Amazon, then I do earn a commission. So I do thank you for that support. I am putting that towards getting more books and therefore doing more reviews on the channel. Alright, and that's it for the Path series this week regarding Hellenism, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. I know it was a long one. do thank you for getting through it, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye bye.